This is Vanessa Love, and this is my channel about the mental health field and related topics and unrelated topics. Today is a related topic. So, I try to come on here. I try to show that, therapists can have a personality, that, we don't have to be robotic. I prefer not to be robotic. I spent years being told to be robotic, basically. Don't show emotion. Don't do that. Don't in things that were very frustrating. And it was told to me once I got into private practice that, if you have an impression of someone, other people might feel that same way about that person, and sometimes you do have to have tough conversations, very realistic conversations about how things affect you. And I just try, that, I try not to, say too much, oh, this is going on, fuck this, fuck that, I really try to, make sure that whatever I'm talking about is something that I would talk about with almost anyone, and that, might be kind of common knowledge. And so, I don't always like to give the details, but, because I do want to keep things private, but, for the most part, I want to be the example of a therapist who can talk realistically about a lot of different things, including not to always trust therapists. And that obviously can be very upsetting for some people. So I think there's a lot of things going on in the therapy community, and boy, do we need to talk. So there was a therapist. One of his clients came forward. She said that he wanted a friendship, and that he would request for her to come in for friend time an hour before the session, and then have the session, and sometimes he would cancel his session afterward so that he could have more friend time. And also, if he thought that the demons were not out of her at that point, he would take her car key and hide it. She pressed charges for kidnapping, which I think is completely, all of this, everything she did, completely rational, completely appropriate for the situation. I completely agree with everything she did. I'm so glad that she's coming forward and talking about it and warning other people, hey, therapists, you can't always trust them. And, this is why I'm saying, practice discernment. Just please practice discernment when you come to your therapist. And I know I'm not the therapist for everyone, because I'm not a robot for some people. And I am imperfect. And I'm okay with being that. Other people, they're not okay with that, with an authority figure being imperfect. They need a perfect authority figure, and I'm not that. But, everything she did, I agree with. I think that the bigger issue is that and he should not have his license. I agree with that. He should not have his license. He might still have his license. There are things where it's is that completely unethical? No, not really. And she was no entering dual relationships. And I'm when a therapist is calm, rational, a person that can, and a proper therapist who can properly evaluate whether or not something as a dual relationship is inappropriate, then it is okay sometimes to have to enter a dual relationship. If I went with no dual relationships, then every time I saw a client, so remember, I worked in New London. New London only has 40,000 people in it. It's really hard to keep away from everything while being active, trying to be active in your community, because I was younger, and also not have everyone relate to each other, because you are going to run into people who know each other, who might be your clients, who might be best friends with your clients, who might be, who know other clients, and man, do you need to keep your boundaries. But if I was so hardcore ethical in New London, I wouldn't be able to do anything. My colleagues wouldn't be able to do anything. They had kids of their previous clients in their kids kindergarten class. What are you supposed to do? Pull up your kids out of every preschool, elementary school, high school, because you can't have that. You know, like we also have to live in the community. Isn't that wonderful? So, like, I would have to leave every time I see a client in the grocery store. We live in the same area. When am I supposed to go grocery shopping? I'd have to leave every place that I saw a client while I was by myself, and I went to a restaurant by myself, and there's a client. You know, can we have appropriate conversation? Absolutely. Hey, how's it going? Oh, it's good. Yeah, bye. You know, like, and like, that's actually majority of what happened. I've also said that when a friend and a client were hanging out, and it would look suspicious if I said, hey everyone, except that person. I said hey to everyone, did my hugs if I needed to, and then I'd go along with my day. Like, it actually could be too revealing of who my clients were if I refused to say something to someone or to talk to them. Okay? Again, you have to have discernment when you are in these situations. Was it okay? Yeah. I didn't reveal who my clients were. I didn't have my clients or myself have to answer questions. Why were you mad at that person? Why didn't you say hi to them? Like, we say hi to everyone in this area. Like, you know, it's really weird. What am I supposed to say? I can't tell you why. That's revealing. You know, oh, we know each other previously. Care to elaborate? You know, like, it's again easier sometimes just say hi. You know, but some therapists don't have discernment. Some therapists are impaired. And I think, so I haven't seen this in Connecticut or New York or New Jersey, where I'm licensed. We have like groups that are dedicated to that, to therapists in those areas. I have not seen anyone be like prominent as a therapist for therapists, and especially like a therapist for those therapists who are questioning their boundaries or having a crisis of career, you know. And I think that we do have to start having that. Right now, what's happening in the field, and what has always happened in the field, is that we get criticized for very small things. I got criticized because all throughout, all of the time, pre-licensed, going to grad school, I have been able to put handouts in front of people and talk about what the proper, you know, meal would look like. Okay? This is something I have been taught repeatedly. To make sure that you teach the kids how much they should be eating, so when they have a chance, they know how much they should be eating and that they might be overeating. We had to do this with every population, right? Like, no one was outside of this, right? So, I know this back and forth. One time, one of my clients was pre-diabetic. I printed something out from the Mayo Clinic that was like, here's a diabetic, you know, diet. Here's an example of what you can eat in a week. And I discussed it with my client because I wanted to make sure that any of the food that might be questionable, that they might not want to eat, that we could come up with a different thing for them to eat that was equal. You know, that was all that I did. I tried to tell my colleagues, hey, look at the things that I did that were, you know, like, I'm trying to, you know, send positivity. Instead of KYS in the therapy community is, why did you ever become a therapist? And that's exactly what I got. Why did you ever become a therapist? That is outside of your realm. That is not what we do. And I don't know, like, is food not a part of mental health? This is news to me, you know. And like, I was not telling this person anything more. I was preparing them for if they wanted to have a better eating habit in just some ways, that they could start by thinking about it, and not just like, oh, one day I'll add more vegetables. It was like, hey, do you think broccoli and rice will work for you? If not, let's talk about other things that could work for you, that would be better for you than what you're eating. That's all the discussion was. And it was a private conversation. Obviously, it was not something that was like expensive. It was just, here's a handout. Let's discuss it briefly, figure out how do you want to incorporate this, if you want to. There was no pressure. I understand that, you know, like, people do think from a legal standpoint, and it's like, but again, I was taught this from when I was in grad school, all the jobs I had. This is okay. You can talk about this. Let's talk about this. What do you think of this? You know, what are we trying to do here? Right. If something is so controversial as that, or whether or not we drink water during sessions, or whether or not we have snacks for our clients, if those are the things, the very tiny, tiny things that we're talking about that, like, people are, like, scrutinizing therapists over, can you imagine if there's a boundary issue that a therapist is going through, or a therapist who's lonely and relying on their clients, or a therapist who's not sure if they want to even be ethical anymore because they're burning out, or because they don't feel good, you know, or they don't know if this is the career for them? You know, like, we need to deal with this shit. I would much rather any of my colleagues come to me and be like, I done fucked up. I really need you to listen to me. Please. I'm scared. I'd rather have that, the big taboo issues, than talk about whether or not you can talk about food with your fucking clients. Like, you know, like, this, way more important. This kills us. This is the one that, like, it is terrible for the field, because, like, people are going to hear things like, you know, my therapist conned me out of $20,000, which did happen, and she was trying to convince the clients that they were buying a house together. It's fucking weird. That's not what we should be doing. You know, this whole, I had a friendship with my therapist, and I'm vulnerable, and I guess I just kind of went with it. You know, like, I totally get that's a very vulnerable person, and that therapists abuse their power completely and utterly. Like, you know, and then the therapists who really, really take advantage, right, of their clients, and it is a huge issue. And, like, we're not talking about those things, and we're not offering support systems for those things, and we're not offering anything other than, well, I guess you did it, now you lose your license, and, like, you should lose your license for those things. But also, before it gets to the point where that is the action to take, there might be, and there should be, a system set up of, I fucked up. I need a therapist who understands this. Yes. There needs to be therapists who are out there, like, talk. You know? Not, well, you have a suspended license, now you have to have supervision for the next, year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever, you know. Hopefully shit doesn't go down. Hopefully you talk about things that you're supposed to. Hopefully you don't get a shit, like, supervisor. You know? Like, there needs to be something. And, you know, if you can imagine that therapists are already critical of this is taboo. We can't talk about it. It's utterly ridiculous. And it's really concerning, because you have all these situations where it's like, that was so not the route to take. That therapists should not have taken that route. And it just, every story I hear, just disheartening. It just breaks my heart. It's really just not acceptable, but also, like, I don't want to go so hard that the people who have done this, who haven't gotten caught yet, or the people who have thought about this, don't go farther into, I can't talk about it now. That's not going to be helpful to anyone. Like, we really need more therapists who are compassionate towards each other. You know, sometimes when you meet them in person too, they're perfectly fine. Online, they might be, like, just really, really, like, problematic and, like, stern. And then you meet them and they're like, oh, yeah, it's okay. I'm not really that harsh, you know. Yeah. Yeah, so I just wish that there was a lot more support, a lot more, like, something. There's just a gap where there there needs to be something, and it absolutely is atrocious. And I think some therapists don't want to go to therapy, specifically, one, because it's weaponized. Oh, you talk to your friends too much, and your issues are too much for them. Oh, you need a therapist. And, like, sometimes, like, people mean it in a weaponized way, like, your problems are so severe that you need a therapist. And it's like, this has happened to me. I am telling a story that actually happened. Just want to tell you guys so you understand and you know where I'm coming from. And it just, yeah. And right now there was, like, a whole controversy. Well, yeah, I've talked about it, where it's like, you don't share your clients' stories. I do share my clients' stories. I think it's fine. Like, why are we making, like, more therapy, like, this mysterious process that, like, no one can talk about? And then it's well, don't talk bad about how frustrated you get when your clients don't show up. That is super frustrating. Why can't we talk about the frustrating parts of, like, this field? Like, like, insurances, sometimes they make me want to rage quit. Oh, oh, do they want to? And, like, I think 2 or 3 of them last year really just, like, were like, I don't know about paying you. I don't know if you're still on our panel. And oh my God, I fought with all of them, and I got onto the panels. I'm fine, but I also had to give up trying, and just be like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know why it's happening. Here's the health insurance advocate. Please help me. Yeah. And anytime anything goes awry, I'm like, health insurance advocate, please, please, please. This is really damaging to my clients. But some clients, very frustrating. It's just part of the field, and I don't know why we have to, again, hide things. Why? And it's mostly because if those clients saw you talking bad about them online, then they would feel so bad, and they would just hate therapy for the rest of their life, and you should lose your license because you said something that was frustrating about your line of work. And it's like, yeah, I am pissed off when my client comes late and then has, like, a Starbucks whatever full, and it's like, oh, there was such bad traffic. So you decided while in the middle of being late already, this has not happened to me, you decided while being in the middle of being late already that you wanted to go to Starbucks and get something, so you're even more, why, maybe you're not as invested as you should be. What was the manipulative thing that the psych hospital taught me to say? All of your behaviors are showing me that you're not ready for therapy. Like, you're not prepared right now. That's actually what I was taught to say. Yeah. When there was an issue like that, and what the issue actually was that I waited to go to lunch because I thought a client was 5 minutes away. They were an hour away. They did not tell me that. When they came in, I said, I was waiting to take my lunch. If you had told me you weren't going to be here for an hour, I would have left and gotten my lunch. I knew that if I left and you were here, you would have been upset with me. So I waited, but I'm letting you know that I am a little upset because I waited to have my lunch thinking that you were 5 minutes away. That conversation was actually very productive because that client said, oh, that must be what I am like towards my friends, and my friends won't come over sometimes unless they know that I am actually where I am, because maybe I did that too many times to them. It was a very frank and open conversation, obviously, and I did not say it with anger. I just said it as a pointing out of things. And there is a way, obviously, to say the feeling and be like, hey, this wasn't okay with me. but I need to talk to you about that, like why that's not okay, you know. And not the whole you should respect my time because I said so. Okay, well, that's not gonna happen. Yeah. Anyway, I better get running. I will talk with you guys soon, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.